Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master Osiron the Eternal for what's going to be Osiron Tarot Spiral 11 or L even. This is going to be called Osiron Tarot Spiral 11, the Tarot, Cube Geometry, and the Zodiac. And my main hope is to show how powerfully the Osiron Tarot Spiral links with the cube. Last year I discovered the Tarot Cube, and it was a couple days after that I discovered the Osiron Tarot Spiral using the cube geometry. But we're going to explore the actual cube aspect a little bit deeper now, because there's a lot of amazing things going on with the number correlations. As I've said before, the Osiron Tarot Spiral is laid out using cube geometry. You got the Fool in the center, which is the center of the cube. You got the Axis cards, which are the womb cards here, and you see this in green. The faces are these red ones here, and you see that here. And the blue outer row is the outer edges of the cube, and you see that here. Now when you lay out the cards in their Tarot Cube structure, you see it like this. You have the Fool here, which is the top of the stack here. Then you got the three Axis cards, which is comprised of the High Priestess, the Magician, and the Empress. And then when you get into the faces in the outer cube, it's comprised of 18 cards. So again, we're seeing this powerful 18 number show up. The past 5 or 6 videos I've made have been heavily and deeply rooted in the number 18. And we're seeing this here with the 18 faces of the cube. Well, the 6 faces, but when you combine the connecting lines of the cube with the outer edges, it produces 18. And this separates itself into a 3-6 separation. Okay, you got the face cards here. When you add them up, they reduce to 3. And this whole group of outer row cards reduce to 6 when you reduce what the total adds to. And so we're seeing a 3-6 separation. But there's more than that too. We also discovered that when you add the columns up, it produces 3, 6, 9, and again 3, 6, and 9. But that is actually a lot more to that as well. This first circled group of 4 are only Kundalini numbers, and the numbers 3, 6, 9, and 0 are the Kundalini numbers, sometimes 1. But so we got this first column is 30, this next column is 33 and becomes 6, this next column is 36 and becomes 9, and this last of the 4 here is 39 and reduces to a 3. These are all Kundalini numbers. And then you got these next 2 columns are only terrestrial numbers. And it begins with 42, which becomes 6, and then 45, which becomes 9. So there's a separation here. And the beauty of that is, when you combine all of these numbers in this first section, it reduces to a 3. And when you combine all the numbers in these two columns, it reduces to a 6. So we're seeing here as well a 3-6 separation. We got 3 and 6. And also, every grouping of 3 cards in this structure reduces to a 6 as well. So when you look at that from just the face perspective, every 3 cards reduce to a 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. So we're seeing powerful linking here with the single-digit code and this structure, this formatted structure of how you lay out the tarot trumps using cube geometry. Because keep in mind, this structure itself alone, there's no reason to add the tarot to this structure unless there's a reason to add it, and there is a reason. So the reason the tarot cards are used here and not just plain numbers is because when you use the cube geometry and wrap it around the zodiac following the rules of cube geometry, then it tells a pictorial story with the tarot keys, and I get into that in Osiron Tarot Spiral 1, the Lost Keys of the Zodiac. The whole series is really worth watching because there's a lot of really powerful videos in here. The first video, though, the Osiron Tarot Spiral 1, I sort of give an overview of the whole series, but there's some really, really good videos in this series. And that's what happens when you do that. So we also see 666 here, but the visual presentation of this cube geometry tarot layout reveals 666 without actually having to use the numbers. Because once you get out, once you leave these axes cards off, remember these 18 cards are the actual visible surfaces of the cube. So, and what you see here with that is you have 3 rows of 6. 6 cards here, 6 cards here, and 6 cards here. So it's revealing to you the 666 without even using numbers, just in a visual key. But the numbers also reveal 666. Now what happens with this is pretty amazing as well, because if you take each row here, each row of numbers, and reduce them to their lowest number, it does it in 9 steps, a total of 9 steps. So again, we're seeing some just powerful links to the numbers here. So the top row here, the first initial axis cards, reduce directly to a 6 in 1 step, so that's a 1. The next row here, the face cards, reduce to 3, but it takes 3 steps to do that. It starts 39, then reduces to 12, then finally 3. So there's 3 here for a total of 4 now. This next row of the faces of the cube reduced to 3, but it takes 3 steps to do that. So 75, then 12, and then 3. So now we're at 7. And then the last row here reduces to 111, and then becomes 3 in 1 more step for 2. So we're seeing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it's taking 9 steps to reveal the 666 here. And then of course that becomes 18, and then reduces to 9 again. There's also some other links with the actual true tree and jewel as well. The number of rows going down is 5 in total. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the number of columns going across at its widest is 6. So we see that here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we see the 5 going down and the 6 going across here for that. And that reveals that. So we're seeing a lot of powerful links. So this structure here, this tarot structure, this tarot key structure, is revealing just some amazing number correlations. We see 3, 6 all over the place. We see the grouping here. And if you were to say 6 times 7, that does give you 42. And Kabbalistically, according to Crowley, 42 is a very powerful number. If you read his book, 777, he has a big section in it which just deals with nothing but number meanings. A lot of it could be BS, and it probably is, but I look in that every now and then just to see if he's hiding gems in there. You know what I mean? Because Crowley does that. He'll hide some stuff in his work, but a lot of his work is really deceptive on the surface. Because don't forget, all these occultists have oaths. And they're not going to break their oaths for freaking normal people. They're going to lie to you. They tell you that too. So over here in the Osiron Tarot Spiral, there's some actual key parts to this I want to get to that are pretty important. One of them is, you see this little man figure here, and there's a 10 next to it? Well, as I get into in the first part here, the Osiron Tarot Spiral and the Zodiac is basically the story of a man's life, okay? He's conceived here in the womb, he's conceived and he gestates in the womb, he's born physically into the world in Aries, and he goes around and he dies in the end of Scorpio with the death card. And this last house here, Sagittarius, is the alleyway between worlds. But what you'll notice is the actual number of cards used in the world where the man lives is actually only 10. Starts out with Aries here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then he dies with the 10th card. So the life of the man is represented by actually only 10 tarot cards here. The actual physical living life in the world is represented by only 10 tarot cards, so that's pretty interesting. And then this last house I explained is the alleyway between the worlds, and this is the womb. And there's one other thing I want to get to too that's really important. The High Priestess Association, because I say the High Priestess is card 1, and she belongs in this house here. I want to get into that a little bit deeper, because every now and then I'll get into arguments with people and they don't understand that concept. Some people are just retarded and aren't going to understand, but for everyone else who actually can process things, I want to get into this a little bit. Okay, what we see here is a card, the High Priestess. Try to make it look nice. We see the High Priestess, and she's surrounded by 2 pillars. You see her dress turns into flowing water and saturates the earth. And you also see a little crescent moon in the corner here. And behind her you see a veil. There's a veil that's separating this world and the other world. Well, all these play key factors in why she goes here. Because as we know, the High Priestess is associated with water. But don't forget, she is the archetypal feminine principle, okay? So she is everything feminine. And what are the two feminine elements of the root elements? Water and earth. Okay, well what we see here is Capricorn, which is the conceived house where life is conceived, and that is earth. And then what is the High Priestess, or the water or the blood of the High Priestess, saturates the ground here. And then the spark of life from the phallus of the devil, which is the tower, ignites the spark of life with fire here. So we're seeing three key elements here. We're seeing earth, water, and fire. And it isn't, and then what happens is that produces the fetus, which is the star, but it's not ensouled yet, and it's only a waiting vessel for the soul to inhabit. And we see that in the next house, which is the magician, and the actual data stream, and so I guess you could say the programming of the body that is going to be produced is done with the magician. And then finally in the last house here, 20 is actually a card that I think is the actual birth card, and the ensoulment. I think this might, the ensoulment may happen with 20. You know, because I'm trying to figure out where the actual ensoulment takes place. It either takes place in the house of the magician with the moon and the sun, or it happens here in 20. In 21, the card 21 is a very interesting card. That actually takes on new meaning in a tarot deck once you figure out what's actually going on. And this realization just came to me the other day. What the world, card 21, actually represents is the continual concept of the unknown. So no matter what world you're in, there's always going to be an element of uncertainty in it. There's always going to be that veil of the unknown in every world. So for the baby in the womb, the veil of uncertainty is the pre-birth state. So as that baby has no idea what's going on outside the world. So as that baby is being born, that is the uncertainty phase for the fetus. And for us as living beings, the uncertainty phase is death here. So when we die, we have no idea what goes on in this house from our perspective. And this last card, 21, the world, is sort of the card that on a whole, on a greater whole, represents the continual uncertainty of every world that we enter. So, you know, after we die here in this world, and whatever happens to us next, we can bet there will, somewhere within that, there will be a level of uncertainty. And that's what this card means. So the world could actually be, of all the cards in the tarot, the world could be the big question mark card. And as in, we don't really know what's over there, and we never will. And there's always going to be that element in whatever life you're in. Because uncertainty is what life is all about. It's what makes life exciting. It's what makes life worth living, is that element of uncertainty. And it's always going to be there, and it shows up with the world. But getting back to the High Priestess, so the High Priestess is here, and she is everything that's feminine. And she gets impregnated by the devil, the phallus becomes the star. But now there's some other correlations too, because on the card I showed the little moon on the bottom of that, and the High Priestess is also associated with the moon. Well, the first two planetary deacons to appear in here are both the moon. It's double moon. So on the actual ring of planets here, the moon begins it here. The first deacon is the moon. And then when you use the secondary planet aspects, which I explained in other videos, the first one to go there is the moon. So the first deacon of Capricorn is ruled by double moon. And then, you know, that's all. This card is screaming High Priestess. It's all feminine. Capricorn is earth, which is feminine. The High Priestess is water, which is feminine. There's a lot going on here. So indisputably, and even in nature, I mean, yeah, as I have videos that explain this, that the female principle, it precedes the masculine in every aspect. I mean, so it's a no-brainer. Once you figure out what's going on with the tarot, there's just absolutely no doubt as to the fact that the High Priestess is the card one and belongs here. And also, there's also pillars on that card too. And we see over here in the structure something going on with the pillars. See, there's a woman sitting between two pillars, Well, there's two pillars here. You got the High Priestess taking the left, and you got the Empress taking the right, and you got two pillars. And then the Magician is in the middle of those. And this structure can break down following in the middle of their two pillars. 9 cards here and 9 cards here. And 9 plus 9 is 18. So we're seeing a lot of this amazing correlation too. Now there's also something else I want to get into that's pretty important. You see how there's numbers at the apex of every one of these 4 lines here? The equinox line and the solstice line? Well, how these numbers come to be, which I explained before, is if you add all the tarot cards on either side of the line, it reduces to one of these numbers. Here it's a 9, up here it's a 4, and over here, see, I have a 7 and a 100, and that's a little deceptive in a way, but there is a valid reason why they're there, because if you add 3 and 4, that becomes 7, and if in the line over here, the stack totals go from 45 to 55, and when you add those up, it becomes an even 100. Or we even see here 9 plus 1 is 10. So, but the way it really should be in its finished state would be all the cards on this side add to it. And what happens when you do that is this becomes a 12, which reduces to a 3. And over here the same thing. This becomes a 12, which reduces to a 3. So now we're seeing again a 33 correlation. We got a 3 on this side and a 3 on this side. So again, we're seeing 33 here doing that. So see, they both have value. This 8 line is also a infinity line, which I explained in part 2. And then when you add all of these numbers up in their unreduced totals, it becomes 150. Okay, and that of course reduces to a 6. So again, we're seeing 6 here. So the Osiron Tarot Spiral in its Zodiac form is nothing more than a pictorial layout of the tarot cards using their cube geometry form, which is here. So when you take the cube geometry and lay it around the zodiac, it tells the story of the creation of man on several fractal levels. Because this is the life and death of a man, but this is the life and death of a lot of things. This is the basic. This is basically telling the story of various cycles of life on several fractals. I mean, this is very, very powerful here, what it's doing. So, and the beauty of this is that because there is other versions of the Tarot Cube out there, and I explained that in the Tarot Cube video. I think I changed the name of it to the Cube of Space, because that's what this cube would be in Kabbalistic circles, the Cube of Space, and they assign tarot cards to it too, but the order is all messed up, and it's not this. But once you figure out what's going on with this, and you assign the tarot keys properly to this cube, and then take the layout that's derived from that and wrap it around the Zodiac Wheel, it tells a beautiful story of creation, and they both support each other 100%. I mean, this validates this as being true, and this validates this as being true. It's integrated. They are all one, and there is no separation. So I can say without doubt that this is absolutely what the tarot is meant to be. Absolutely what it's meant to be, using cube geometry, number code, and the zodiac. So thank you, and namaste.